this world in which we live can no longer ignore the reality of climate change. Climate change is not about hurricanes and floods. It is about droughts. It is about wildfires. It is about sargassum and our ability to provide drinking water and feed our people, to provide shelter. We face that in our own nation today, from drought to sargassum. And while hurricanes may be viewed as the heart attacks, sargassum and drought are truly like diabetes, insidious and wearing us down. It is the world of our children that is absolutely at risk. And the young people of the world last Friday, across 150 countries, they chose to champion the cause of climate justice. Greta Thunberg from this platform spoke, and she must be comforted and told that when mankind cannot answer you, they will attack you. They play the man and not the ball. But I want to say from this platform that for me, it is significant that when young people engage in battle, the war is usually won. We saw it in South Africa. We will see it now in the battle against climate. And I am therefore confident that the battle will be won. The question is, and each of us in here knows it, will it be in time for our people who live in small island developing states? Will our small states survive this climate catastrophe before mankind finds ultimately, as I know it will, the solution to halt and reverse climate change? And it is we in the Caribbean and in the Pacific, in the oceans of the world, as small islands, we are the ones on the front line. But as I say to you all the time, make no mistake about it. Others are also in the line behind us. And as we would say in my own country, today for me and tomorrow for you. And really, what is it that is preventing us from following the science? Science, by the way, that is exceedingly compelling. I ask us, even as leaders, to be real. Real with ourselves and real with our people. Real with the young. It's about political will. That's it, nothing more, nothing less. We have been discussing the challenge of climate change for over 3 decades. From the time when small island developing states first raised the global alarm in 1988. Commonwealth gave us a vulnerability index in 1989. The Barbados Program of Action 25 years ago. Then Mauritius, then Samoa. How many more? How much more talk? And we're still here today, some of us singing the same chorus, as if there are many who are deaf and many who are blind among us. And I find it ironic that after our Climate Action Summit on Monday, the IPCC released another special report on oceans and chromosphere, which summarized that some of the more severe consequences of climate change can no longer be avoided. How many times have we been told this? How many times has science reinforced that there is a very threat to our survival? There are those who will go into the high altitudes and remain as if they can be insulated. But for how long? The destructive behavior continues. I ask you today, in this hall, where is the moral leadership of our world? Where is the constructive action by the countries who are responsible for carbon emissions, who believe that it is okay to continue to build coal power plants and not decommission them, who do not understand that the world provides for us the prospect of new industry and new jobs, while allowing us to save the world for our young people? I asked them, do you not see what is happening? And why are you not acting? Do you not care? We are told, and I believe the science, that we are the last generation that can deal with this existential threat. Week by week, last weekend it was Tropical Storm Karen. In the Atlantic, we were lucky that Jerry and Humberto did not go the way of Dorian. How many more must stand on this platform? How many more must speak in the corridors of power? In the name of the people who have sent us here. In the name of the people who expect us to create the new industries to transition them from coal, from the destructive behavior, from the diesel cars, from the gasoline cars, changing how we build, changing how we transport ourselves. We can make that difference. It is within our power. It is within the political will of the leaders. And the time to act, my friends, is now. Never within the history of mankind has one generation had such responsibility to protect this planet. Mr. President, unfortunately, the Caribbean today also finds itself at the front line of too many other major challenges. That's why I ask all the time, who sees us and who hears us? We continue to be confronted by problems of blacklisting, which pale into insignificance when compared to climate change, but which destroy our financial sector. The illicit flow of weapons, such that the ease with which people can go into public spaces and shoot and kill others is now regarded as just another item on the news because we promote profit in the manufacture and trade of guns and weapons. And in the case within our own community, Belize and Guyana continue to face challenges to their territorial integrity. I suppose people feel that because we have talked so long about Belize and Guyana and Cuba, that we can continue to talk about climate change and these other things, and that it is okay for it to be another tick on a UN General Assembly speech. These are all threats to our stability, to the people's stability in our lands. But you know, since last we met, there are other instances and circumstances, not of our making, that may yet destabilize us. And we say it over and over, but we ask who is listening. And you know, we don't come with tales of woe only. The Caribbean has produced excellence. It really has. Nobel laureates, sportsmen who have excelled and are the best in the world of their type, artists, the best in the world of their type, leaders who have inspired previous generations and current generations. We don't come here as a proud people asking for handouts. We don't want and will not be mendicant. What we want, no, what we need is fiscal and policy space. Fiscal and policy space to achieve sustainable development, to be nimble, to adapt, and to innovate in ways that allow us to be true and faithful to the task of bringing prosperity to our people, or as in the theme of this General Assembly, to eradicate poverty, to educate our people, to include all such that there's not some outside and some inside. We want an international order, equally, that recognizes that there must be different policy prescriptions to suit the circumstances that we all have. And we can still be friends, small and large, north and south, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, all different races, all genders. an equitable and just international order that is truly built on the principles of justice and fairness for all and not just for some. A United Nations that recognizes that as 74 years old, we must be able to have difficult conversations as mature people and solve them. Many in the developing world were persuaded or required to abandon policies that were designed for the majority of our population to be transformed. And those policies were fashioned to adopt a consensus that was settled in Washington, D.C. and named thereafter. And that ultimately, regrettably, was about the consolidation of wealth in the hands of a very few. That's why we have seen the growing inequality that we have seen in the world over the last few decades. That is why too many people over the world have become cynical about governments and about the benefits that they can bring to them. The fueling of the greed of a few threatens to undermine what little gains we have made since independence. And we judge ourselves harshly because independence is a recent phenomenon for us. Others who have taken 150 years to get where they have gotten are still stumbling and falling. And you want to judge those who have had less than 50 or 60 years to operate in a world that has not been made in their image and that does not reflect their interests. This is the fate, my friends, of simply too many. And Mr. President, despite our small size, the 14 countries of the Caribbean community have been able to play leadership roles of international import. I can't stand here today without talking about St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that has become the smallest nation of the world ever to be elected to the Security Council to sit on it. We are proud of them. In addition, and I want to speak to this, because when CARICOM was confronted with the unfolding situation in Venezuela, I accompanied the then chairman of CARICOM, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, to meet in this building with the UN Secretary General in January of this year. And we met with many delegations. And some said we were wasting our time. And some said the time for talk was already over. And we said then, as we say almost 9 months later, the time for dialogue, the time for talk, my friends, can never be over in a world that wants peace and prosperity. We don't take sides, but what we know is that you cannot propel war over dialogue. The people of Venezuela must be allowed to decide their own future in accordance with the principles of the United Nations Charter. Principles of non-intervention, non-interference, prohibition of the threat or use of force, respect for the rule of law, human rights, and democracy. It is regrettable that other multilateral organizations have not followed their own charters. And that is what makes the actions of our Secretary General of the UN more laudable, for refusing to breach his own charter and take actions even though member states have hurled into the recognition of those unelected. That is why Barbados readily agreed to the request by Norway, and I salute my colleague Prime Minister who just left this platform, to host the talks between the Venezuelan parties. We salute the government of Norway for walking the walk and taking leadership in facilitating these talks. Equally, we regret that the talks have broken down. And we remind people that dialogue remains critical if there is to be a meaningful outcome and benefit for the Venezuelan people and its neighbors, not just its neighbors on the Latin American continent, but its neighbors in the Caribbean Sea, because people forget that Trinidad and Tobago is less than 7 miles from the coast of Venezuela. Our Caribbean Sea must remain a zone of peace, and for that we shall fight. Mr. President, I speak plainly and without fear, because from independence, Barbados' foreign policy has been premised on the simple principle of friends of all, satellites of none. Barbados, therefore, has always remained and will remain proud to have Cuba as a treasured friend. Barbados established relationships with the People's Republic of China when others failed to. We may be small, but we are principled. Our relationship is based with Cuba on a historical foundation rooted in solidarity, cooperation, and complementarity of a common Caribbean civilization. And we say that the long-standing economic embargo on Cuba continues to be a cause of serious concern. I reaffirm Barbados' strong opposition to this unilateral action, and more so, the recent activation of Article 3 of the Helms-Burton Law imposes new restrictions and further exacerbates the situation. And I ask you here, to what end? To what end? The continued attempt to stop the people of Cuba from living with basic human dignity is unacceptable. Mr. President, it is time that the global community recognizes that small island developing states are truly equal partners in the international arena, and that our special development needs must be taken into account in the multilateral forum. Growth in the economies of the developed states, we contend, must not come at the existence of the very viability of small developing statements. Small children have a phrase for it. They call that cowardice. They call that bullying. They call that crowding out. We ask for fairness, equity, and opportunity to take our legitimate place in the global community. That is all. That was the promise of our membership of this organization. And I know that today I have a duty to acknowledge and commend the heroic efforts of our Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, who is swimming against the rising tide of anti-multilateralism and anti-globalism, navigating the dangerous currents of dwindling resources and resisting, my friends, the efforts to set adrift all of the excellent work done over the last 7.5 decades by leaders across the world and his predecessors to ensure development, peace, and the dignity of human family. As a small nation, we are not only committed to multilateralism, we also understand that it is the one thing that protects our sovereignty and our ability to navigate in this world. It is our buffer against the display of might, and it is our shield against tyranny. We continue to view the United Nations as an important mechanism for achieving international peace and security and sustainable development for all countries, but in particular for the most vulnerable.
So this video is just entirely generalizing everything because of the inequality, unfair treatment, unfair justice, or from bigger countries to the smallest countries. The bigger countries who have power, especially, yes, to the developing countries. They're the one who normally come down to the smaller country to bully them, but they don't follow their own charters. They don't follow their own rules. She spoke a lot of things that are really, really, really meaningful. And even if you want to add some comment on it, you dilute it because she finished it all. But it's just to encourage the countries not to give up, not to say, oh, we have been talking about this, the situation of climate change. We have been speaking a lot, but who hears us? Or who want to listen to us? But the people, they continue to work otherwise. She is talking about countries that are using, or the countries that are commissioning the power station that are using coal. And this is the problem. This is the problem because I have mentioned these problems on my video, in one of my videos, like, so the developed countries, they are coming down to Africa and force Africa to start using renewable energy, but they are also not stopping the coal producers to stop producing coal, to start producing coal. And this coal, they are being taken to Europe, according to Malema. They are taking coal to Europe to go and warm their houses, to go and power their power station. So now Africa is being forced, or developing countries, they are the ones that are being pushed to stop using power station, or to stop using, to stop their power station, not to use coal. But there is no alternative to the coal power station. So now the people they find, or the countries they find themselves in the dark. South Africa is one of them. Malawi is one of them. Sierra Leone is one of them. There is no alternative. If people they can work towards the alternative, and once now they attain that goal and objective toward renewable energy, then they can put a stop. But there must be a situation of 50-50. 50-50 coal, 50 coal and 50 renewable energy, because Africa is going to be in the dark. Mind you that these countries, when they are going to put up their renewable energy in Africa, so normally this investment is for them. You can see the location where they are putting this renewable energy. Most of the time, these factories, they are located on the coastal coast, next to the harbor, meaning that they can harvest their energy and transport them to their own country. But if they can put this energy next to, or if they can put this plant in the middle of the country that they want to really, really help, cannot be located or situated, or they cannot put this plant in those towns that are on the coast or harbor towns, meaning that this project or this initiative is not for Africa. But that's why, if strategically they are locating this renewable energy on the harbor towns of a certain country that they want to invest, let them put this plant central, southern, or northern, but not to the coastal towns. The African countries, we are not learning. Everything sounds good, but as long as it's strategically located, that investment is not for Africa. It's for them. That's why now Barbados Prime Minister is talking about this renewable energy or alternative to coal. Yes, everyone wants that. But the problem is only that the Western, they won't stop bullying the smaller country because it's their natures, or their survival depend on smaller countries. If they don't have smaller country to bully, or if they don't have any country to bully or to exploit their mineral resources, or now these renewable energies, they won't survive. They need Africa to survive. That's why there will be no inequality. So she spoke about her entire existence She didn't see something where people, they really want to change the condition of the smaller countries. There's nothing like that. That's why they will continue to speak, they will continue to talk speech upon speech. If that building, if that UN, if that General Assembly could speak, they could speak by now, because a lot of voices, they went there to cry out. Since their existence in 1940 something, since their existence up to now, they are still speaking for the same thing. As long as they depend on the continent, Africa, the equality, the social justice treatment when it's come to the multilateral sectors, or country bullying the smaller country, that one will not end, because it is what it is. We are hoping that the situation will change one day when it's come to climate change, because really climate change now is not about flooding, but it's a mixed flooding, then drought, wildfire, just a lot of things. So it seems like the climate change is there to make country to continue to depend on aid. If someone can think that way, it's like climate change is there to make the countries who are depending on aid to continue depending on aid. So after your country is being flooded, the coming years you're having drought, a severe drought, and you have no choice. So the aid, the countries to go and look for aid. You have to go and seek for aid, because you cannot have your countries being starved. Animals are dying, there is no feeds, there is no grass. So the whole thing is like systematic, programmed to keep on African people and the people on the Caribbean to continue to be on the aid, to continue asking for aid. So this is what it is. If really someone can think like climate change, you have drought, aid came in. Even if people are speaking of the aid to be minimized, mind you that the donor countries, they want this donation to flow, continue flowing into your country, so that they can continue holding you, controlling you, or in return, there is something that you need to offer them. So it is what it is. So, but yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you have watched up to this far, kindly subscribe to my channel, like the video, and give this video a thumbs up. Share the video to your loved one, and see you on my next one. Bye bye, and